Well, hey, good Monday evening to you guys. I might have called this more of a mellow Monday stream than Monday Madness, but I was just feeling my wild oats. I spent a lot of time this weekend straightening up, cleaning up around the office here, getting ready for a few changes, which again, you guys are going to see like a little bit of. You're not going to see much of. Hello, Vincent. Good to see you. Um, but it's going to be big for me because it's gonna clean and straighten up a lot around the office here. So um, I'm looking forward to that being a thing, and it's not something that you guys will see. Uh, Roll Tide, Luther Calhoun. It's not something you're going to see a big bunch of effect on you, but for me, it'll mean a lot. It'll mean doing things a lot easier around the office here, and maybe, just maybe, possibly, I'll have the room to get some RPG books out of boxes and onto shelves and have fewer boxes just sitting around here, because that is a huge pain in the ass. Hello, Doomsword. Good to see you. So all that is still in the works, and I'm still looking forward to it. Still wanting that to happen. I was just kind of caught my eye over there, and I'm thinking of like the Dwarven Forge. I've got tons of Dwarven Forge pieces sitting over there that are, I don't want to say they're inaccessible, because I mean they're not. They're moderately accessible, but not so much of a remodel as a redecoration. Vincent, basically what's going to happen is you guys can just see the edge of the giant Lord of the Rings display that I have. My sister got this for me when she worked at Best Buy when the movies came out on DVD. And so that's going to go over on this wall behind me. And then these items, and I'm currently blocking Tracy's painting. I'm not sitting in a good place right now. But like Tracy's painting will go over to the door here, and all these knickknacks and odds and ends will go on bookshelves, which will be over here. And I will move slightly. I will rotate this way a little bit, so you'll take in more of the bookcase and see more of the door. And so I will hopefully be able to reach things a little bit easier. The space over here to my right, which is kind of behind Darth Vader here, which you guys can't actually see. This is originally, I wanted to have a freestanding homemade Dragon's Lair coin op cabinet. I mean, you can emulate Dragon's Lair on like a Raspberry Pi computer that's like half the size of this coaster here. It's just like the top 2 inches of that coaster in size. And, you can emulate every classic arcade game. I thought, hey, I'll do this. And so I reached out to someone who does cabinetry, and he's like, that sounds awesome. And it's going to be great. And you're right. It'll be a bunch of open space, but you can store stuff in there, And I'd gone to get a cheap LCD screen of the right aspect ratio to mount in the cabinet, instead of a big clunky CRT. I am not that much of an arcade guy that I'm like, no, it has to be a glass tube CRT, and it has to be scan lines and so on and etc. Screw that. Those things are hot, and they're dangerous to work on, and they're rare, and they're fragile, and they're heavy, and they require a lot more power. So yeah, no, it would, like, everything would be contained in like an inch depth and just the size of the frame of it. And I was looking very much forward to that. And then that person just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. So no, Dragon's Lair Arcade machine in the shot, and I am nowhere near confident enough in my crafting skills to do that myself. It is what it is. So, crushed velvet portrait. Got to get the cockpit comfortable. At crushed velvet portrait on the ceiling. Hang the fuzzy dice lava lamp. I might do a lava lamp. You know what? I might get that. But the space that the arcade game would have been setting in I will have room for my resin 3D printer sitting over there, because that's really close to a window and it can exhaust out. And that's what'll go over there. So in the cleaning and the straightening, some other things got set aside. If you're waiting on that Patreon video, it's coming. And I have a really cool thing. I'm gonna give a hint. I'm not gonna say anything about it, but I'm just gonna show it briefly. Okay, if you know what that is, there's a Patreon video coming about that. So that's gonna be really cool. And if you wanna see that video where I talk about that thing that I just showed, and another thing which is way rarer, you can subscribe to us on Patreon. I don't mind. It's right down there, right along the bottom there. So there will be Cannonball Run. Yeah, no, not Cannonball Run. So yeah, there will be that video coming. I got sidetracked with the straightening and so on. It's spring, and the spring cleaning, spring fever, taking care of stuff like that. So that was a lot of what went on this weekend. And what else is happening? Giant moose head, pair of cross swords hung on the wall. I can see. Yeah. A katana, a tartan design of some kind. I don't think we're going to get that wild, but hopefully it'll be pretty cool. And unfortunately, the chair is out of here. It makes moving around so much easier, but it's going to be nice. It's going to be really nice. Another thing that I'm planning on doing, this is something, this is video related. I'm going to talk about videos that are coming up. I was watching the video, the Twilight 2000 Let's Play that I did, where we had some tank on tank combat. And I made so many mistakes during that. And the Krull Glaive replica. Yeah. But I made so many mistakes in that, because look, the timeline is fine. The vehicle combat in that system is complete jank. I enjoyed printing up the miniatures. I liked having the terrain sitting out. It is complete jank. Somewhere in these boxes of rule books I have over here, I have the Twilight 2000 2.0 rules, which, when the rules came out in the late 80s or early 90s, they changed the background, and they felt like they had to change the background because the world had changed. The Berlin Wall had fallen, the USSR had gone out, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Present situations aside. So yeah, they changed the background. Well, I kind of shied away from that, but people kept saying, hey, you should definitely check out the 2.0 rules, even if you use the 1.0 background, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just like, nah, man, the 1.0 box set is cooler, and it's got a cooler aesthetic. Man, that vehicle combat system is shit. And I was thinking about it. I was like, I could probably spend an entire weekend hacking together a good old basic, a combat calculator for Twilight 2000 first edition. You enter your weapon type, you select the target type, you enter the range, you enter the angle of incident that you're hitting it at, you enter the ammo type, you enter the gunner skill, you enter in factors like, did I move? Do I have a rangefinder? variables like, have I hit the target before? What's its armor rating now that I've hit it? And it like just entering stuff and entering stuff and entering stuff and entering stuff, and then doing a die roll, like having it do a random, an R&D function die roll to tell you whether or not you'd hit. It's like, there's got to be a better way. So I'm going to dig in to the Twilight 2000 second edition or 2.2 if I have those rules. And a lot of if then statements. Oh, so many if then statements and data statements and arrays to dimension. So yeah, I'm going to look in the 2.0 rules. And if after looking at it, I figure out that the vehicle combat system is much more streamlined, we're going to have another shootout. And what that has to do with stuff that I want to do here for the table is, you guys can't see it currently, but you've seen it before. Let me see, is my camera? Okay, I'll show this to you guys real quick. Let's see. Nope. Okay, sorry about that. I guess no, it is not plugged in right now. In moving the PC around and all, I had to unplug the camera lead. But so the Dwarven Forge is out there on the table. In doing tabletop demo stuff for you guys, let's play. When I do the let's plays, if it's something a little more esoteric, like if I do BattleTech, which I could do BattleTech, I have BattleTech maps and so on, or the Twilight 2002 demo, or Starfleet Battles, or if I do another Space Hulk demo, if I'm doing that and I have the Dwarven Forge out there, taking it down is just a not inconsiderable giant pain in the ass. So what I was thinking was just some thin, like 2-ply plywood, something like that, with pegs that are like 2.5 inches tall. The plywood's cut into pieces and it just sits on top of it, basically makes a deck that goes on top of the table. Can have the fights there for tactical tactical combat and other kinds of role playing demos for you guys. I think it would be pretty neat and a lot simpler than take all the Dwarven Forge down, box all the Dwarven Forge up, do the demo, take all the terrain off, box all the terrain up, break out the Dwarven Forge, and build it again. I literally have 2 tiers of game table. Game table for demo stuff, Dwarven Forge for AD&D nights with you guys. I think that would be cool. Or even Dwarven Forge and Dwarven Forge, Luther says, what about an audio component to your cave? Zeppelin's Battle of Evermore playing in the background, followed by the intro music to Conan the Barbarian, the Schwarzenegger movie. Yeah. See, I can't have those things in live streams. I can't have them in pre-recorded videos. YouTube will not allow it. I was telling how a few weeks ago when we were playing, we were playing AD&D or Gamma World? I think we were playing Gamma World. It was one night we were playing Gamma World, and in my headphones, like coming into my headphones, I had some Ministry playing. And I was terrified. Hello, Dungeon Minister. I was terrified of the Dungeon Minister finding out. No, I was terrified of whether or not the audio had gone in at least a little bit, hello Doomsword, to had been basically had picked up and been mixed in with the audio of me talking and of the players talking. Like, had that gone live. Because if it did, YouTube would have struck my channel and I would have lost an entire video. So I was sweating that pretty heavily. However, if you watch the opening crawl to my videos, that music by my friends over at Bards of Greyhawk, I mean, it really combines the best of the Zeppelin-esque sounds. They came to me and they were like, because I had mentioned before, like, oh, I got to get theme music. I get opening credits one day. Ha ha ha. And Rich Denver came to me, Rich Lopez, I'm sorry. Rich Lopez came to me and said, you know, we'll do music for you. And I was flattered beyond words. So when the, you know, he and Jeremy said, what, you know, I got on a conference call with them and they were like, what do you like? What is, you know, what is your sound? What is your, the vision of sound that you have, for lack of a better term? I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know, Allman Brothers, you know, some of the quieter parts of Ramble Man and Midnight Rambler, or Midnight Rider, rather, Midnight Ramblers, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Battle of Evermore, or Braun Eower, or White Summer, Black Mountainside, and things like that. And what they brought me, what you guys hear like 31 seconds of, is really amazing, beautiful music. Now, I may never get permission to play Led Zeppelin live for you guys, you know, Battle of Evermore, while I play some D&D. But my gosh, I don't, you know, for music for this show, I don't need it. And I'll tell you something, and I'll say this without a hint of untruth to it. The piece of music they made for me, which is called Summer Mountains, is in my regular musical playlist. It means so much to me. It means so much. You really do owe it to yourself to check out Bards of Greyhawk on YouTube. I think they have a Facebook channel. I don't know if they've gotten more media stuff together, but this is my small way to pay Rich and Jeremy back, because the music they made for my channel is ethereal and beautiful and elegant, and I love every note of it. It really is. It brings me joy to hear, and I'm so happy about that. Unbreaded Michael Connor. A high-end multifunction game table rotating out various game table types. The James Bond of game tables. Not shaken or stirred. Yes. Now, one thing I did steal. There's like 2 stolen pieces of music. I can't monetize it or anything like that. I put together a video on YouTube many months back called The Absolute State of Dungeons and Dragons, in response to the release of the awful modern interpretation of the Ifriti battle on the cover of the Dungeon Master's Guide, namely the assassin, illusionist, magic user, thief, possibly monk, female that the Ifriti is clutching in his hand while squaring off against the knight and the wizard at his feet. She's gone. She's been deleted. Once again, erasure of women. And so what did they do? Is it just his clenched fist? Is it just his open hand? No, it's the knight who is at his feet, is now clutched in his grip. So I did it like Memology 101, the absolute state of Dungeons and Dragons, how it started. And I do a slow pan down the cover of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And Anvil of Crom is playing, just a few seconds of Anvil of Crom. And then it jump cuts, and then the caption on the screen says, how it's going. And then there's a picture of this $400 piece of cold cast resin shit that is the new Ifriti statue, while the circus music outro from Curb Your Enthusiasm plays. And then it fades to black and is little fake credits thing. So that's that was my joke. Well, in using Anvil of Crom and Curb Your Enthusiasm, WMG and UMG both do copyright claim on that video. So any ad revenue I ever get from that video goes to them, which is fine. I don't care. It's a meme. It's like a little over a minute long meme video that I made to stick my finger in the eye of Wizards of the Coast. You love the cheers nature of this live stream. Norm. Yeah. Actually, there, Dungeon Minister, this is more of like a Fraser kind of live stream because, there's just one of me and not your rotating cast of individuals who would come in and elicit humorous responses when they would perform their normal tropes, John Ratzenberger. Oh, good evening, Mr. Peterson. How you doing? Poor. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What's wrong? No, poor. The gleam in the eye of Hasbro. Yes. I will tell you an interesting and heartbreaking thing about Cheers. Not in real life. I've been playing a lot of Fallout 4. Somebody asked me how Fallout 4 was going. I'm still enjoying doing the base building and stuff like that. Somebody was saying I hated Fallout 4 because of the Minecraft base building. I love it. I've downloaded all kinds of mods. My settlements have multi-story condominiums complete with video games, pool tables, swimming pools, showers, toilets, kitchens, restaurants. My Commonwealth is a decent place to live for people who stay inside the settlements that I've built. But I was playing some Fallout 4. Now, Fallout 4 is an interesting. You ever get like some really quality bubble gum? I'm not talking about like the Hubba Bubba that your teacher would let you take for spelling California right, or just what I mean, the really primo stuff. I'm not going to try and change your mind. Frasier is phenomenal. Frasier was an amazing television show. Kelsey Grammer, week in and week out. There is not a bad episode of that show. There is not a single episode of Frasier that is bad. But anyway, Fallout 4 is like that gum because you're sitting there chewing it. Yeah, I'll get almost all the flavor out of that. And you kind of roll it over in your mouth and you mash it flat and fold it with your tongue and you're chewing it. And you're like, oh, holy crap, that's still sweet. That's still good. Num, num, num. You still find good flavor in there. Yes, I went num, num, num. You still find good flavor in there. Luther, I'm going to answer that question in just a second. It's a good question. I'm going to put it up on the screen so I don't forget about it. So Fallout 4 is set in Boston. Cheers is set in Boston. I'm roaming around, and in the basement of a building, accessible through a little flight of stairs on the outside, street facing, is a bar. And I'm as happy as can be. And the name of the bar is, it's something in German, and I can't remember the word. So I go in, and one of the rarest commodities in the game, if you're trying to build settlements and you want them to look good, is glass. Like you want, like I said, I built condominium towers. I built like 15-story condominiums for settlers to live in. So I go in, and there's glasses and pitchers and mugs and pint glasses and shot glasses and empty bottles scattered everywhere. And of course, there's skeletons. So I'm walking around this place, and I'm moseying around. And there's, a lot of Fallout 4 is very tongue-in-cheek humor, and a lot of it is supposed to elicit a sense of melancholy that, these, regardless of how screwed up the world of Fallout 4 was, even before the bombs, these were people, and they were living their lives, and then the world ended. Sometimes you'll find holotapes, like, I don't want to get too depressing about it, but you find very poignant staged scenes, and you're like, damn. Which is what still gives me hope in the series, that there's still people who care enough to handcraft things that you might never see, you might never consider, but when you find them, and so it was in the case in this bar. So I'm roaming around, and I just kind of go past, and I'm picking up stuff like, oh, there's an office over there. And I go in the office, and I'm like, a lot of baseball memorabilia in here. And I lock open the safe, and I get all the safes, and I come out. I'm like, oh, there's a guy sitting at a table, very well dressed. His skeleton, it's just skeletonized, wearing a suit. Very nice. And I'm turning around, and I'm looking, and I go behind the bar, and curled up together, there's two skeletons, woman in a dress, man in casual outfit. Okay, whatever. And then I turn, and I look, and sitting at the end of the bar is a skeleton wearing the remains of a postman outfit. And a skeleton next to him wearing just casual clothes. And that's when it hit me. The name of the bar, let me see. Prost, which is German for cheers. Prost or Prost. It was Sam and Diane behind the bar. Of course, Norm Peterson and John Ratzenberger's character. I was not a huge Cheers fan. I'm sorry. And Frasier sitting off at his table in the corner there, and that was Sam's office in the background. There's no notes. There's no holotapes. Thank God. And what struck me at that moment, just standing there listening to the banter of my NPC, who I like, was the total poignancy of it. Now, there were melted candle stubs stuck on rails. It's been 200 years. That nobody came in here for 200 years is a little, there's a lot of stuff like that. Like, you find like, you know, a box with a weak lock on it that's got, it's got pre-war food, a laser rifle, a bunch of ammunition, and some body armor. You're like, in 200 years, none of these bandits that I've just been running into, there's thick as flies, thought to come over here and bash this thing open with a rock. But in this case, it really worked. And it was really, like I said, it was kind of touching, kind of heartbreaking, because I thought, let's step out of our literal minds for a second and think, the big city killer that was supposed to destroy Boston in Fallout 4 actually lands to the southwest of the city. It's called the Glowing Sea. If you go out there without power armor or an environment suit, you're dead. But the city is still jacked up, and there's still like area you can just be walking around, and suddenly your Geiger counter will start to tick. And I, as I kind of looked around, I thought, okay, just assume for a minute that this is the Cheers gang. Did they just come back to one more time? They realized that it was they were all lethally irradiated and just want to spend those last few hours before they succumbed with their friends? Or were they all there that night in October of 2077, just having a drink, enjoying each other's company? And the neutron flux was so strong, even at that distance from the high yield warhead, that they perished before they knew what had happened. It was, like I said, it was kind of poignant. I usually, when I find stuff like that, I'll play with physics. I have enough ammo now that it's no thing to me to like, oh, there's a skeleton just like sitting up perfectly in a chair. I'll shoot it with a railgun and see how far it'll fly. I left this alone. I left this place alone because I thought about that. It's a dumb video game. It's like, I don't think anything in, like, when I'm playing Half-Life, of using the crossbow and God mode to pin Combine soldiers to the wall and try and spell stuff with their bodies, right? So yeah, it was a very poignant moment there. But anyway, to move on, I'm going to answer your question, Luther. I'm going to answer your question. Am I more sci-fi or fantasy? When it comes to tabletop gaming, I prefer slightly. I mean, I'm talking like 50.5 to 49.5% in terms of what I prefer, fantasy over sci-fi. A well put together sci-fi game is something I want to be part of, whether I'm running it or whether I'm playing it. But fantasy just edges it out. I mean, my awakening of genre fiction is really right on the bubble in terms of what it was and when it was. I mean, for all the awfulness of it in general for the country, the 70s, We had some great bleak science fiction in the 70s. I was like 9 years old and staying up late one summer night watching the Saturday night movie or something out of Atlanta at a TBS there when I lived in Gadsden, and I saw THX 1138 in its entirety. Logan's Run. What else? Silent Running. And then, of course, 77, Star Wars. But in 78, the Rankin Bass production of The Hobbit debuted. I remember watching that in color. We had a black and white TV. This was in color. And so I watched it at my grandparents' house on their color TV. I don't even know why we'd gone over, but it was a pretty big deal because one of my aunts, I think my Aunt Donna, it must have been Donna. Gosh, she's been dead for 10, 12 years now. But anyway, she was 20 something at the time. She and all of her weirdo hippie friends were over watching it, and I loved it. I adored it. And my Aunt Donna gave me a copy of The Hobbit. I still have it. And then later she gave me the Ballantine, that gold foil slipcase of the Lord of the Rings. And I read The Hobbit and then immediately jumped into Lord of the Rings. Hello, Rich Denver. Speak of the devil, and he'll soon appear. So right at that crux, right at that locus in my life, from being 7 until I was 10, all of this sci-fi and fantasy just sort of rushed together. And then, of course, we moved to Florida, and I discovered Dungeons and Dragons. And at that point, it was, it's like when you're playing a game with quick time events like Dragon's Lair, and you got, this door flashes and that door flashes, and I was like, push the joystick right. And so I went the fantasy route for most of my gaming, but my parents ridiculously were caught up in the whole moral panic over Dungeons and Dragons, but they knew I loved role-playing games. So I think it was 12. Whenever Star Frontiers came out, they bought me Star Frontiers for Christmas one year. And so I had a sci-fi role-playing game, even though Dungeons and Dragons was verboten for a while. So I immersed myself in both fantasy and sci-fi. But when it comes to tabletop gaming, now I've said before, this is a Paul Harvey, the rest of the story moment. I've said before, hey, I started playing D&D when I was like 11, and it's been a love affair ever since then. There were fallow years in there. I would say middle of high school, I kind of stopped playing. I didn't really pick up role-playing games till I came back into college. So there's a couple of years there when I wasn't gaming. But when I got back into gaming, all of the people that I gamed with, they were like 4 or 5 years older than me. Rob was in his, I think, I guess Rob would have been in his late 20s at the time, mid 20s anyway. Well, they had all played AD&D and OD&D in college and high school, when I had just gotten my feet wet with it, but then sort of moved away from it. And they were tired of it. They had played D&D for years when I had only played for a couple of years. But I did want a game. And in 89, second edition was coming out, and there was just something, there was a little bit of the verve just looking at the books. And I'm sorry, look, if you're a solid 2E fan and you come to me because like Bill is old school and he likes AD&D, and that means all AD&D. I'm sorry. Second edition seemed to lack the spice of first edition. It seemed very commodified. And look, we've had Jim Ward on the show, and Jim has talked about what they did and how they wrangled the blue-haired ladies, like my mom, the Bible thumpers like my dad, and how they tried to, move D&D to a consumer-friendly position. Now, under the orders of Lorraine Williams, D&D sales-wise was doing fine. It was doing fine. But so when we jumped in, like, I was in college and those guys were gaming, and I had an unexpurgated deities and demigods, a couple of D&D modules, a player's hand or a monster manual, my basic D&D sets, all that stuff. I took it to a used bookstore. Because, I mean, I can just buy it back again one day if I want it, right? I didn't know anything about that rarity taking off. And I wish I still had my AD&D books. And I thank God that I was able to get them back. But when the guys really got into role-playing, it was superheroes. God, oh my God, so much superheroes. Getting them to play a sci-fi role-playing game was like pulling teeth, but occasionally we did. But it wasn't until the later 90s that I was able to get them to sit down and consider D&D again. And now we can play AD&D again. So it's kind of an up and down thing. But looking back on it all, I mean, fantasy is what called me back. And D&D is so simple and it's beautiful and it's elegant and what it does and what it allows you to do. Draw sword, attack dragon. There's no subsystem of, okay, I shot the dragon's left breastplate. Dragon has 300 points of armor there. My crossbow does 2d10 times 10. I rolled that, but I get plus 30 because it's an AP shot. Okay, that goes through, and there's 23 points of damage left over. Okay, it's lung, heart, aorta, spine, and the lung. And there's none of that. There's just none of that in fantasy gaming. And that's what edges it out for me. That's, science fiction is lovely. It's wonderful. I like gaming at it, but occasionally there are moments where it's like, I can't really logically say no, because I've said this is how the tech works and you want to use the tech to other stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm the game master and I could say no, but I would be going back, and then in D&D, it's like, it's magic. I don't have to explain shit. So that's why I love D&D, and that's why I love fantasy. And it's not just fantasy. And I've said this before, when people are like, oh, you're a gamer, you're a tabletop gamer, you must love all role-playing games. Like you can play GURPS and you could play Gamma World 7th E, and you can play Big Eyes, Small Mouths, and Ninja High School, and Gumshoe and Chill and it just and it's like turning to white noise. And I'm like, look, I play Dungeons and Dragons. I have a lot of other role-playing games, and I occasionally enjoy those role-playing games. I'm a D&D player. I mean, look, if you see a guy that's out there on a Sunday and he's driving the Titleists down the fairway, right? Just walk, walk, walk. Do you assume Not you guys. I'm not. There's nobody out there that I'm not giving any grief. Um, but you don't assume that dude also plays football and hockey and mountain bikes and basketball and competition swimming. He might be I love all sports. And I know lots of people who do. And I know lots of people who are like, no, I'm a gamer. Like, what are we playing tonight? That's all I want to know. What are we playing tonight? Or not even that. When are we playing tonight? Because I'm a gamer. And for me, I'm a D&D player. Now I will play other games if the friends are right and the DM is right. And I know Kyle must be going bananas right now. Like, no, no, no. Set system comes last. But yeah, no, I'm a D&D player head and shoulders above before saying I'm a gamer. But like my love of music, I love all music, but not all examples of all music. Like if you say, oh, you love all music except for rap and country. No, especially rap and country. But that doesn't mean that I want to listen to, you know, Billy Ray Cyrus. That doesn't mean that I want to listen to, I don't know, who's the guy with all the shit on his face and the Skittles colored teeth, went to jail for a little while. 6X9. Uh, you know, I would much rather listen to Johnny Cash and you know, Grandmaster Flash. Hey, I didn't mean to make those rhyme, but they did. Than those other things. If you say, "Oh, you like world music," well, you must like all this. No, not so much. Not so much. But I don't think that there's any category of music that is bad. Just universally bad. Like, do you mean death metal? Yes, I mean death metal. Prog rock? Absolutely. Prog rock is great. Christian contemporary? You know it. New age? Absolutely. Film soundtracks? God, that's so much. I mean, where to even begin with that? So like my music taste, that's my role-playing game taste. But also like my music taste, I like rock. Rock over all of it. But if we get in the car and you put in a disc of classical music, I will probably enjoy it at least on some level. Or country. Or Japanese music. I tell you, if you if I ever was ever just hanging out with a friend and he's like, "You mind if I put on a record?" Sure. And he happens to put on Hell Mountain by the Gaino Yamashiro Gumi, the Japanese vocal music performance group. Once CPR is done to restart my heart from me dropping dead from surprise, um, you know, and I pick up and dust myself off, I will say, wow, I did not expect that. I thought I was like the only person on the East Coast that enjoyed that. But the point of all this rambling is I'm a D&D player well before I'm a just any game, every game. Now, someone up there, was it? Who do I get to pick on? A-Wig was saying, man, not to mention a white wolf. Nope. Nope. You know how I was talking about about 6x9 and uh, Billy Ray Cyrus. That's kind of where White Wolf is for me. I appreciate the effort that went into it, but the storyteller games from White Wolf they're not my jam. And I've tried them. I have tried them. I have played some vampire, played some werewolf, and no, never LARP. Thank you very much. And I have played some Exalted. How about White Snake? Uh, I mean, I have the self-titled album from them. Everybody owned that album in 1987. Was Still of the Night on it when that track dropped. Everybody with a mullet and a Camaro had that cassette. Um, LARP in Wall Street Plaza. Yep. I heard about that. Dungeon Minister says, I enjoyed Vampire. Well, I didn't know you had a stake in that, Dungeon Minister. Please forgive me for that. Have I ever played the Wizardry video games? Yes, I have, and I love Wizardry. I have played the original core series of Wizardry games, 1 through, I can't remember if the last game is Legacy of Legamen or if it is Knight of Diamonds, but basically where it ends before it starts to turn more into like Ultima. And I'm not bagging on it. I just think its strength was in the dungeon crawl. And 6, 7, and 7.5 were not really my thing. I was out of CRPGs at that time, so I don't have a lot of nostalgia. But those original boxes, man, from Surtech, those were where it's at. Nobody gave a crap about the song, just wanted to see Tawny Katane in the videos. Yeah, I mean, yeah. She's not with us anymore. She passed away last May. A rough life. Let's see. If they could make a universal game rules, White Wolf would be playable. I mean, Storyteller is pretty universal when you get right down to it. I mean, it's giant fistfuls of D10s. It's kind of the hero system of of drama llama kind of games, right? I mean, isn't it? Let's see. What is good sci-fi? On the tabletop, I mean, as you guys have seen, really Traveler kind of reigns supreme. Traveler's problem is that it became, it went adrift. It lost its anchor chain. I mean, you had, wasn't there a D20 Traveler and a Traveler hero system, GURPS Traveler? So many systems poured into it that it really altered what it could have and should have been. Um, Vinny says, I'd love to get copies of the early 90s arcade D&D games. They're on Steam. You can download them on Steam. You're talking about the Capcom CPS2 sprite-based beat 'em ups, right? They're on Steam. You can go get them there. If they're not there, they're on GOG. So I would say that if you want something with kind of a baked in setting, Star Frontiers is pretty all right. It's not great. It's okay. The fact that it didn't have ship to ship and fighter ship combat, I think, like out of the box, no pun intended, I think it was a huge stumbling point. Is I really, really wanted those things, like not just blasters and stuff. Everybody I knew who played Star Frontiers, when I would introduce them, would be like, "Oh, cool! It's like Star Wars. Do I get an X-wing fighter? No, no. Ships are just kind of maps. Like if you're on the Millennium Falcon, it's just a map that you adventure inside." Um, Jack, that's absolutely right. Traveler did get crazy with a lot of variants. Um, so I would I mean, yeah, Star Frontiers has got its, its UFP um or whatever it is. I fixed my mistake a little bit quicker than you, Doomsword, but it's much the same. Dracolite, Dralicite. Yeah, I made the same mistake. Um so what else? Now with sci-fi systems, there's so many types of science fiction. Like fantasy is just it's spells and sticking a sword and guy. Maybe it has elves. Maybe you're playing more like something that doesn't have elves. But like if you're playing if you're playing a spaceship combat heavy game, there's going to have to be a system for that. If you're playing a giant robot game, there's going to have to be a system for that. If you're playing just a power armor game, like, you think Iron Man, or you think like even like the SF3D Machining Krieger, um, there's so many different there's so many different things that trying to bring it all, like, let's say you have a system that wants to do Star Wars. Okay. So what do we got to have? Well, we have tons of alien races, from the little chicken things in the new movies all the way up to Chewbacca and Rancor and beyond. Okay. But so you're not, but you can't call it Star Wars. So you're going to introduce other stuff. Well, there's space battles. Okay. Well, Star Wars has got those. Well, there's power armor and there's mecha. Oh, okay. Well, that, hmm. How does Chewbacca drive a battle mech, or, the little short looking guy with the weird face gills in Nien Nub in the end of Jedi. Um, and it really, really, it changes things up a lot. So so there's, there's a million different science fiction setting variables to throw into a science fiction setting. Fantasy is a little bit simpler. I mean, maybe magic works a little differently. Maybe it's a low magic, maybe it's a high magic. Maybe it's AD&D where everybody's a Christmas tree monster, just draped with ornaments that all glow. Um, so in that respect, it makes things a little bit better, a little bit easier. If you tell me, hey, I want to play a fantasy game, I can contrive something on the fly. If you tell me I want to play a science fiction game, well, in what setting? Well, giant stompy robots or giant mecha. Okay. Do you want elegant ninja space ballerina robots like Mobile Suit Gundam? Do you want transformable robots like Macross? Do you want big stompy clunky slow robots like Battletech? Or do you want something in between? Or do you want like medium sized to small robots like heavy gears, which are practically their own thing as Votoms, although there is a Votoms role-playing game out there if you can find it. So there's a lot of fine detail settings, and I've seen some people try to generify. Like there was back in the 80s, Iron Crown Enterprises, or maybe it was Hero Games, whoever was publishing Champions at that time, um, published a set of hero system based giant robot rules. And it was Robot Hero. But it was all of the baggage of hero system with a veneer of giant robot goodness wrapped around it. And it proved that a generic system doesn't fit a genre specific system. And it does, I feel there's nothing in the world wrong with a genre and a setting specific role playing game, that this is the way things work. I mean, when people are like, yeah, I want to play AD&D, but I really want to bend things hard. I mean, it's up to you, the GM, to do that and enjoy it. I won't try and take away your fun, but at the same time, it makes it a little. It makes it a little difficult. Um, it makes it a little difficult to pick the exact precise temperature. Fantasy is a little more, open that way. Is Mekton any good for mecha? Depends on what Mekton you're talking about. I mean, yes, broadly, yes. But just like Mike Pondsmith can't stop farting around with Cyberpunk, there has been there's Cyberpunk 2013. Well, the original was set in 2013. It wasn't called Cyberpunk 2013. It didn't change. They didn't start referring to it as Cyberpunk 2013, which was this big box set until Cyberpunk 2020 came out. Cyberpunk 2020 was set in 2020. A couple of years ago. So they they tried several different Mectons. There was a little 3 little white books for Mekton initially. Mekton, Mike Pondsmith went the OD&D route with Mekton. It was I remember it was frustrating how limited it was. You had big cannons, you had big missiles, you had a small cannon and small missiles. and you had big blasters and small blasters, and that was it. And everything was just super generic and super simple, almost too simple. Then Mekton 2 came out, but it kept a lot of the simplicity. But then something wonderful happened. He released Mekton MTS, which let you do anything when it came to the construction of giant mecha. You want Armor Trooper Votom's gritty, realistic, 3-meter tall mechs that are powered with internal combustion engines and use machine guns and guided missiles, none of this fancy laser crap, you can build it. You want 11-story tall mobile suit Gundams with beam swords and 6 30-millimeter Gatling guns in their heads and nuclear missile launchers on their back, you can build it, and everything in between. And it was actually pretty cool. It was very fiddly. It was very nuts and bolts. We'll see you, Luther. Take care. And it came out with some great modules. Operation Rimfire is fun. It's railroady, but it's fun. And then he kind of took a hard right. It's like he's flying down the highway of, I've created a pretty good system. Oh, look, there's an exit. I can just, and MTS and Mekton Zeta, or Mekton Zeta came out. MTS was thrown to the side, and Zeta Plus, and somewhere in between there was Fusion, which tried to make, I don't know what, but it had a bunch of systems too. You could do that. You could do coal-fired mechs with giant axes and sledgehammers in MTS. It was entirely doable. So that was kind of how Mekton went. I am a huge fan of Mekton 2 and MTS. I think personally, those two rule books together represent the pinnacle of Mekton. Others feel differently. But Mekton was a good system in the days of Stompy Robots, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So I've held court on a lot of things tonight, and it's getting late, and I need to take care of some things. But before I slide out of here and get ready for tonight's first edition AD&D game, I got to take a minute to thank all the people who help out, who help the show. And I really, really want to say thanks to these folks and thank them for their patience. So let me just take a moment to thank Digital Discord, Joshua Garlock, Lord Corion, Ricky Maru, 8 Mobius 8, Kevin Reynolds, Joseph Lucas, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damian X247, James F. Keck, William Smith, the Dungeon Minister, and Mr. Manny Wall. Guys, thank you so much for contributing. You help keep the channel going. Everybody helps keep the channel going. And by the way, we are at 958 subs on the channel, unless I got to check, somebody might have unsubscribed. Oops. That's not going to open on that tab. But as of today, we were at 958 subs, and that was a good time. So yeah, 958. We are 42, the answer to life, the universe, and everything, 42 subs away from the great underground online gaming convention, guys. 42 subs away. When we get those 42, and this channel has 1,000 subs, I will be announcing the date when we are going to have the great underground online gaming convention. I will run such classic role-playing games as original D&D, first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, Twilight 2000. I'll be doing some game demos of Hero Quest, Dungeon, Space Hulk, We're going to have a great time, guys. And other people are champing at the bit to come in and run some other classic RPGs. Kyle out there is in the audience. Kyle's talking about coming in and running some Traveler and some Conflict. I got at least a couple of people that want to come in and do other games too. Paul Stormberg's going to run a games. Guys, it's going to be a lot of fun. You are keeping the watchfires lit for me, for us on this channel, by going out there and saying, hey, go subscribe to the Delver's Dungeon. Because I'm small fry, okay? I don't have YouTube's attention. They're not going to push my videos out there for the world to see. You know, there's 16 million channels on YouTube. That's a 1D 16 million that gets rolled. And I'm, 11,432,516. The odds that it comes up on my face and YouTube says, oh, push this guy's videos to the top are, 1 in 16 million. So you guys going out there and telling people subscribe to Bill's channel is how I get people subscribed to my channel. It really is. It's that simple. You guys want this and you're making it happen. And I see it every day. I see your devotion to this channel, whether you are a Patreon or whether you're just a dedicated subscriber. And I thank you for it. I thank you. And we are this close, guys. We are this close to hitting it. So keep telling people to like and subscribe. And if you just came by, if you did stumble on this through hashtags or whatever, and this is your first time here, and you're like, this crazy neckbeard and the Led Zeppelin shirt, what even is this? And you like what you see? Click that subscribe button. Click that bell notification, that bell icon for notifications. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Leave a comment under it if you didn't like it and tell me what you didn't like. Leave a comment under it if you did like it and tell me what you did like. But I appreciate it, guys. I really do. Listen, this week we have got Mike C. He is an author and a wargamer, and he's going to talk to us about a whole lot of stuff. He might have some interesting things to say. So I haven't settled on which night that's going to be. He's a busy man, so it's going to be either Wednesday or Thursday. Tomorrow night, first edition AD&D. Early Wednesday night, regardless of whether or not Michael is here, Kyle and I will have something going on. Or is that tomorrow? I can't remember. He lives in the future. All right. It's a problem of time travel. But Kyle, of course, will return this week. Friday night, Gamma World. Next week, RPG Elite will be here. That's right. I've got more guests, more awesome guests coming up. So thank you all once again, everybody. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Mobius. I have not talked to the Garrison guys in Jacksonville, Michael Connor. So thank you all, everyone. I'm going to get out of here. I got a D&D game in like 15 minutes. So have a wonderful evening, and I'll catch you guys up on what happened in last night's game or tonight's game later this week. Have a wonderful evening. Be well.